Hello and thank you for joining me. My name is Aaron Rogers, and in this video we are going to be installing Ubuntu 18.04 into Oracle VirtualBox Manager. The version I'm running is 5.2.12, which is the newest version as of the recording of this video. And Ubuntu 18.04 is also the newest version of Ubuntu as of the recording of this video. So this video is going to be really targeted for people who have never used a VM before. This is how I like to set mine up. There's a lot of customization options in a VM. That gives you the opportunity to set up your virtual boxes however you want. But this is the way I choose and I prefer to set up my Linux distribution. So I've got a clean window with VirtualBox Manager installed. First things first, we got to create our machine. So let's click New. We are going to call this Ubuntu 18.04. Now, it automatically realizes this is a Linux distribution, and it says it's an Ubuntu 64-bit distribution. I'm going to leave those options. Next is we're going to want to give Ubuntu some RAM. I would suggest a little more than 1 gig. I like 4 gig, so 4096 is the best option here. For my PC, that's for sure. Okay, we need to create a virtual hard disk. The recommended size of 10 gigs isn't a whole heck of a lot, especially if you're going to use this to test, or if you're a student, you're going to use this to do some labs for a Linux course or something. You're going to want to give yourself more space than that, but we will create a virtual hard disk now. Let's click Create. And what we will do is enter this expert mode here. VirtualBox disk image is fine. We can leave that selected. And let's set this to something like 60 gigs. That'll give us a lot of room to play with. Where do we want this saved? I've got a special place on my expansion drive called Virtual Machine Hard Drives, and I'm just going to put it in that folder. I'm going to pick Save. Now you can pick any directory you want or anywhere you want to store this disk image hard drive. Next thing I'm going to do is hit Create. Now this will create our hard drive. Okay, now before we even start, we got to set up the machine a little bit more. All we've done is really created a hard drive and told the virtual machine that we're running 64-bit. So let's go into Settings. General settings we've already configured. Let's go into the system. We've set up its base memory. We don't need the boot order. We don't need floppy. That doesn't need to be selected. If you leave it selected, there's going to be no problem. You're going to kind of want this set up the way I have it. PIX3 USB tablet pointing device. We don't need enable EFI, so you can leave that deselected. Let's go to processors. I'm going to allocate 2 cores to my virtual machine. If you have more cores than I do, you can dedicate more, but I find with Ubuntu and Linux distros, unless you're using hack tools in Kali or something, you probably don't need to dedicate a whole bunch of CPU power to the distribution, so I find 2 is good enough. Acceleration, I just leave everything at default. As for the display, let's max it out. I like to give it 128 megs of video memory, and I just use 1 monitor, but if you want to use 2 monitors on your virtual machine, you can slide that bar over. That's all we need in that. Now, we've got our hard drive created, but what we need to do is install the disk, I'm using air quotes here, into the drive so we have something to boot off of. So I've already downloaded Ubuntu 18.04, so I'm going to click this icon here and I'm going to choose a virtual optical disk. And I've got them saved under my D drive. And I've got Ubuntu 18.04 desktop AMD 64. Click open here. Okay. So network, what I'd like to just make sure is we enable the network adapter. It should be enabled by default. Okay. Now our machine should be ready to go based on these settings here. So what we're going to do is hit Start and begin the first boot of our new virtual machine. Okay, so we are starting. It's looking to boot Ubuntu. This is a good start. Let's maximize this window here. Okay, here we are. So choose your language of preference. For me, I'm going to choose English, and we are going to install Ubuntu. I'm going to use the standard American keyboard layout. Continue. Now we're going to do a normal installation. I like all of the add-ons. I'm also going to install third-party software for graphics and Wi-Fi. It's the graphics I'm after, not the Wi-Fi options. Okay, so this is where we can just erase the entire disk and use our virtual disk for Ubuntu, or we can do something else. What I'm going to do is just to set myself up to have a blank bit of partition to play with, I'm going to create something else. So this is the drive I am going to use, and I'm going to create a new partition table. Continue. Okay, now from here, I'm going to first create my swap, and we're going to make this 4096. So about the same amount, I make it the same size I have as my installed RAM. In this case, it's 4 gigs is what I chose. So I'm going to use this as a swap. Click OK. And then I'm also going to create roughly 40 gigs for my operating system, and the rest I'm actually just going to leave. Okay. And it's just going to be a regular journaling file system, and I'm just going to mount it right off the hop, right at root at slash. Okay, so I've got some free space here that we can play with later when the distro's installed. I've got my swap directory built, and I've got a roughly 40 gigs set aside for the operating system. So let's click install now, and it's going to ask me if I want to write these changes, and I sure do. There we go. Where do I live? I live in Regina. Good guess, Ubuntu. All you have to do is click the map if you live somewhere else, though. You can click anywhere on this globe, and it should, as long as you get close, it'll pick the nearest city to you. My name, Aaron Rogers. Pick a username. Aaron is fine for this test, and I'm going to make my password password. Why not? Now, the more complex the password, the more Ubuntu will give you a strong, weak, or medium style password. Password, because it's a standard dictionary word, Ubuntu's telling me it's a weak password, but this VirtualBox is just a demonstration, so I'm not going to be doing anything there. But if you are a little bit worried about passwords and stuff, definitely feel free to use capital letters, lowercase letters, a number, and a symbol, and you will really enhance your password. We will click next, and now from this point on it's like watching paint dry, so I will fast forward the bars filling up, and I will come back to you when it has been installed. Okay, and we are back. So it looks like the installation is complete. It took me, I don't know, in between 10 and 15 minutes. I do have a 100/100 connection to the internet though, so that did speed up the update process. But now we've got this fancy installation complete window. You need to restart the computer in order to use the new installation. Let's click restart now. We should see our VM reboot. Now it's going to ask us, please remove the installation medium, then reboot. So I'm going to go to, let's see here, devices, optical. We are going to choose disk image, and that's it. We're just going to leave it blank. Make sure here we have no disk in there anymore. There we go. Now we are into Ubuntu. Just to make sure that we are live, I'm going to click my name, type in that fancy password I entered. Then we should see our beautiful desktop. There it is. So now we have successfully installed Ubuntu 18.04 on Oracle VirtualBox version 5.2.12. Thank you for watching the video, and I really hope this helped.